Estes is the name of the dog bed. This is Sophie, and this is Sophie's roadmap to success. Oh, sweetheart, yes, you're going straight for the treats. You make me feel used. All right, so this is her roadmap to success. The reason I was called in, there's another dog named Eddie, who is a Parsons Terrier that she's gotten into a couple of fights with. And these times have happened when they're on their way to an external dog park on a drive. And so out of precaution, the guardians at that point, just after the second or third time, just said, we're just going to separate them, which is important to do initially. We want to make sure the dog stays safe. However, if they're never together, then the last thing to remember about each other is the fight. So anytime you have dogs get in a fight, you have to do what you got to do in the moment. You got to separate them and let them calm down, but you want to get them back together as soon as you possibly can. I mean, like minutes if possible. So basically, these guys have been separated for a couple months, and now when we brought him out, she did a little staring at him and targeting at him. So I'm going to go over some tips that you can use to help dogs, help in this sort of situation where one dog's reactive to another. So basically, the other dog is older as well. So basically, a couple things you can do. I would like them to have some joined activities. So I'd like them to start going for walks in your neighborhood together, but they need to be calm. If she's worked up or excited, or he is, excitement is not happiness when it comes to dogs, but sadly, many humans confuse those two things. So we want to maybe exercise her first, because she's going to have a lot more beans than he will, because he's 12. And so maybe we play fetch with her for 15 minutes or so, or do the stairs or whatever it is, and then give her a 10-minute recovery period. She shouldn't be breathing heavy, like we call that dry panting. She shouldn't be doing that anymore. Then we take them for a walk. And do they get excited when you pull out the leashes, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, so if you go to my website, there's where it says dog training tips. On the right side of the box on a laptop, or on the screen on a laptop, the bottom of the screen, second to the bottom screen field is a search box. You can search in calm leash. I have a number of videos that show you. It's basically a principle similar to the video above this one, teaching the dog to wait at the door with the door open by breaking the activity down into small steps and helping the dog practice the behavior you want. Come over and over again without going through all the steps altogether. And if you do that, you want the dog to be nice and calm. Also, don't narrate. You go for a walk, you go for a walkie-walkie, you want to go for a walk, you want to go for a walk, you want to go for a walk. And if we get them all excited, we interpret that as happy, but that's when mistakes are going to most likely happen. So I'd like to see you start walking them together on a daily basis. Don't think of that walk as a walk for exercise. That is a friendship walk. And so maybe just to the end of the block and back. Now, when we're doing that, we want to have human, dogs on the outside. And so that's her name tag. Come. And so basically, if she's staring at him the whole time, then start increasing the distance. Anytime your dog's reactive, the best thing to do is increase distance until you can get your dog to sit and take a treat. If she won't sit or take a treat, she's too close, it's too intense. So you might actually have to be able to cross the street, but just make sure you're all parallel, that nobody's in front, because whoever's in front is perceived to be the leader. So I'd like you to start doing that on a daily basis, so they go for a walk at least once a day, multiple times a day, even better. So now when they're walking, they see each other, they hear each other, they smell each other, but there's no pressure of actual interaction. Now, some other things that we can do is when I have a dog with behavior issues, I like to, like I said, break the activity down to small steps. But in this case, I like to do with dogs, sometimes I break down the things into senses. So in this case, the visual of seeing the dog, or the visual of, the nasal of smelling a dog. So basically, what I'd like you to do is get one washcloth. Make sure that you wash your hands completely first, and grab that washcloth and then rub it all over Eddie's body. And spend like literally about a minute, and pay particular attention to rubbing between his shoulder blades and along his spine and on top of the small of his back. Also, you can do kind of his nether region. Then flip it over and do the whole process again. So about 2 minutes of doing this. So at this point, what we're doing is loading up a lot of Eddie's scent onto this little table, just a little hand towel, washcloth. And hey, kitty. Yes, you're in black. I'm in black too. You got two different colored eyes. Halloween, black cat crossing your path. Okay, so all right. So basically, what we want to do is now we've got this all loaded up with scent. Get a Ziploc bag. Put it in the zip. You could use it the first time, but each time put it back in the Ziploc bag and make sure you're not handling it with the hand that's going to have the treats in the description I'm about to tell you. So, all right. So basically, I have the washcloth behind my hand here, behind my back. And I have a bunch of treats, and I wasn't ready for this, so let me get one out here. And so I'm gonna have both these behind my back. Sit. So I'm gonna pull out the washcloth, she smells it, and I pull out, and then I say Eddie. Or you can drop it on the ground. And every time she licks at the treat, say Eddie's name. So the motion is like this. I flash, she sniffs it, I pull it away, and then treat. Flash, sniff, pull it away, treat. And sometimes you have to switch hands like Taylor showed you in the leave it command. And at first it's just half a second and then goes away. After a while you can let them get a little bit more sniffs and longer prolonging it. You can also put it on the ground, like throw it on the ground. Problem is you get a little cross-contamination with the stuff on the ground, but you have a dog so you can make another one after a day or two. But you throw it on the ground, she sniffs it, and then you give her the treat. And you say his name. So this is another nice way to create a positive association together. Now, because she's so much bigger than he is, and because he's an older dog, we'd like them to practice being in the room together. A lot of times I would recommend like tethering one of the dogs, but this is hardwood floors and she's a big dog. She's going to drag anything anywhere we tether her to. So you could, I guess, get a longer lead if you have a support on that railing over there, maybe a 6-foot lead. What I do is I run the lead around the leg of or one of the posts and then run it through the handle. So that way she's got 6 feet, but she can't make it past a certain mark. Now, tethering can be frustrating some dogs. So the other thing, my original suggestion would be to go get an X pen from Amazon. They're just wire pens. They're, probably maybe 36-inch tall one. They're about $35-$40. Set it up in the corner or somewhere. I'd like the dogs start spending some time, more and more time together. But I want to make sure that they're all safe. So if we put Eddie in there and go to Carpetland, get that piece of remnant carpet, put it on the ground, and fill it through with some stuff. Give him a bully stick or a kneecap, and give her a kneecap out here. So they're both chewing things. Now make sure she's not too close to the area when they have high value items. That could be an issue as well. But what we want them to do is practice being in the room together. So maybe while she's in there, or maybe we do the X pen around the couch. So what if you can be on the couch with Eddie and hanging out, and somebody else can be in here with her? Now, every time she looks at the other dog, you can pet her. Another thing that I do is something called clicks for looks, and I have videos on my website on the dog training section for that. Just type in clicks for looks, and it'll come up. So what I would do is I have a bunch of treats here and a clicker. Now, if you use a clicker, you need to prime or load the clicker first, and you can go to my website or other websites and find out how to do it. It's really easy, but it's using the principles of classic upper conditioning. Okay, so basically what I do is if she's sitting here, and let's say that I'm the dog, and right over here is where Eddie is. We're kind of just hanging out, and I look up, click, and then a treat comes here, and I hear the word Eddie. So again, it's the same principle, but now we're doing the visual of looking at Eddie gets me a treat. So if we do that, I would like you to do, she's saying hi to the cat. I'd like you to do these kind of in stages. So maybe the first thing is spend a week just doing the smell of Eddie. So keep them separated the rest of the time and just do the smell. Try to do that maybe like 4 to 6 times a day. Doing it more is better. So I'm not putting a limit on it, but try to do at least 4 times a day, spread out throughout the day. So that would be the first thing. The second week, maybe you start doing the click for looks. So, the whole time you should be walking them together. But maybe the second week, now we're doing the visual. So we're hanging out, and maybe Eddie's in the X pen, or she is. Probably be easier for him to be there. And every time she looks at him, click, Eddie. Click, Eddie. So after a while, just smelling Eddie gets me a treat. Looking at Eddie gets the treat. And none of the fights have been in the house. So once you guys start seeing what we'd like her to do is her to be like laying here in Estes, and Eddie get up and like move to one section of the X pen and lay down. And she kind of looks at him but doesn't like stare too long. She looks, he's getting up, and she goes back to doing it. That's what we want her to do, is be aware of him but not staring at him or really tense. And also use your gut. We have instincts for a reason. If there's a tension that you can feel, now it might come from you guys, but make sure that you're paying attention to that. If she started, and also watch her. Her ears, she's a happy, goofy dog most of the time. Her ears should be up like they are right now if you look at her over there. And so if you see her, she looks at Eddie and her ears flip back, that's saying I'm not feeling good about this situation. So you look for deviations from her normal body mechanic to something different, and that could be an indication that she's not comfortable with something or dislikes something or whatever it is. Now, if she ever growls at him, that's not aggression. We never want to, and she's never done that before, from what I understand. She has in the house?
Yes.
Okay. So what do you do if she growls at him?
I have a spray bottle, or I would make
Okay.
a sound.
So the spray bottle is kind of the old way of dog training. What I do is completely force-free and positive reinforcement, and a lot of people have been doing that sort of thing. And what you're trying to do is say, look, I disagree with your growling, and so I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of punishment or reprisal for doing that. The problem with that is a growl is actually the antithesis of aggression. It's really a warning. It's saying, I disagree, I don't like. So if I say I don't like something and somebody punches me, well, then that's more egregious. They're not punching, they're not doing anything abusive. But it doesn't make me feel like anybody's listening to me. Matter of fact, it makes me feel like I've got to look out for myself because I communicated something bothered me and you didn't listen to me or show respect. Matter of fact, you punished me for doing it. So a lot of dogs have been trained not to growl as a warning and go straight to a bite. And one of the things that now that you mentioned this is kind of, my wheels are turning, that it seemed to happen out of nowhere. What happened between them, they actually got in a fight. And so that might be, I was excited, and I know I'll get punished if I communicate. I disagree with that dog getting excited or whatever the case may be, so I'm just going to go and correct him and bite him. And so that would be something that we never want to disagree with the dog or correct a dog or punish a dog for growling. What we want to do is take note of what the situation is, and if she's growling because she looks at him, then call her further away. So if you're doing the click for looks and she looks and it's intense, the thing for all of these activities, not the smell one because she's got to be proximate, but for the click for looks, move her further away. My 2 tests, can I get her to sit and take a treat? If she won't take the treat or she won't sit, she's getting close to her breaking point. And if you push too far, then that's the sort of thing that can happen. So no more squirt bottle, and we want to reward her for desired behaviors and distract her from, instead of correcting, we want to distract her or provide her a replacement behavior for stuff we don't like. So for the growling, just immediately move her away about 5, however far away you need to. I'd probably move like 5 or 10 feet at each stage and then ask her to sit and give her a treat or 2. Now, if we do come back to go over the relaxing protocol, remind me and I'll show you how to do a focus exercise, which would be a nice way to get her to look away from you guys, look away from the dog as well. So the idea for this is, let me just sum this stuff up. So first we want to do the smell. So the dog's not even present, I'm just getting the smell and I'm hearing his name. Second thing, and while that's going on, we're getting at least 1 walk a day, but try to do it 2. Maybe walk them together, then bring Eddie back home, then take her to Chalco for the really long walk. So it's kind of, again, oh, Eddie happens, and then what happens after I see Eddie? I get an adventure, I get a reward. So another reason to think that Eddie is just the bomb. So, and so basically, the first week is, again, just the smell and then walks together. Second week, we're still doing the walks. The walks are going to continue through all of these steps. The next step is we're going to put her them in the room together. Every time she looks, we click and say Eddie. Click and say Eddie. And do that for like maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes. And then after she kind of if she lays down and she's asleep with her head up right now, but if she kind of lays down and goes to sleep, that would be wonderful. But if they're still awake and looking at each other, after like 5 or 10 minutes, then put Eddie back away. Give her a chance to kind of settle and relax her batteries and give Eddie a chance to settle and relax his batteries. But eventually we'd like to start elongating that so they're spending more and more time in the room together. Now the X-Pen helps us recognize that he is safe. She can't get to him. Or if she tries to, we at least have a step or 2 where we can do it. But if you do this properly, she should not be growling. She should not be aggressive or stiff. She should actually look at Eddie as a good thing, because when Eddie's around, good things happen. Now, some dogs do resource guard people. So it's possible that there was a little bit because there was a resource guarding issue as well. Because Eddie, if I remember correctly, the way you described it, was on your lap and she was in the back seat. So that could also be, why does he get the privilege of that? And I think there's probably some jealousy issues going on here. She is a puppy basically, but she had no rules. She was able to tell her humans when to pet them. So I think that she's probably a little bit confused and she's probably under-exercised. The Guardian does a great job of walking her for a really long walk, much longer than most of our clients, but he does it at the end of the day. So all day long I have this energy pent up, and then I've gotten the right car, we drive to Chalco, I still have all this energy pent up and I'm in a bad mood and Eddie's did this and boom, sometimes those things happen. That's why exercising ahead of time can be really beneficial. So to help create a healthy leader-follower dynamic, we talked about enforcing some rules. It's a great way for the humans to enforce those rules. Enforcing those rules makes you look like a leader because you're burning energy and the dog sees you in action. So the first rule I usually suggest, and these rules should be in place for 90 days minimum or as long as the problem is still going on. And remember, breaking a rule is a horrible, confusing way to reward a dog. It will actually cause a lot of frustration, can lead to stress, can lead to other problems. So the first rule, not be allowed in the furniture for at least 9 days. And you can sit down, you don't have to stand the whole time. If you're comfortable, you're comfortable. So basically not allowed in the furniture for that 90-day period of time, or however long it is, and then after that, we're allowed to be up on the furniture with an invitation. Now, this is important for a couple reasons. One of the fights did break out when she was on top of the furniture and he was on top of the furniture. Different pieces of furniture, but the cat moved around, there was a stimulus, and then boom, she went after him. The guardian was able to stop that, but again, the higher they sit, the more rank or social status they have. Also, she literally, in the other video that's above, I forgot I took that, you saw how she was climbing up on top and just showing no respect for personal space. Well, just not being able to be accessing on that level will help her practice that. And dogs are practicing everything they do. So I'm practicing wiggling and jumping up it, and I don't see why, because she's a happy, lovable dog, and the guardian was petting her. She was getting rewarded for doing that. And in her mind, I think she thinks wiggling up and licking them is my way of, they like it because they pay me for doing that. That's why we're going to talk about petting with a purpose here in a sec. So the first rule, not being allowed on the furniture for the 90-day period, and then after that period, only with an invitation. And so once that's the case, can I pick her up?
Okay. He's really good.
There we go, buddy. What a black cat. That black cat on my lap during a dog video. The irony. All right, so basically, you can get those X mats and put those on all the stuff to help keep the dogs off, while you're still training. That way, you don't have to enforce it yourself. The other thing that you want to do is at the end of that period of time, they can be on the furniture with an invitation from a human. It's a one-time pass. It's for only good behavior. So if you invite the dog up and then she starts barking, she would lose that privilege. Remember to toss the treat down on the ground. Don't ever throw it towards Eddie because that can create a problem. But throw it down, or towards a cat. Throw it down, and when she gets it, licks it up, say it off. Now, it'd be better to teach that command independent of asking her to get off, just right now before you start enforcing it, just to teach her that command. You want to get down? I'm not going to force you. You can do what you want. Okay, so that's the furniture. Another rule that I talked about in the video above about the door, is you have to sit before I let you out the door. And it's explained there, so I'll just let you watch it there. Also shouldn't be allowed in the kitchen where we're preparing food, or around the dining room table, or any human who has food. Put that painter's tape down initially for a week or two to help the dogs understand how to stay behind that line. And if you forget how to do that, go to my website, click on Dog Training Tips, type in invisible. I have a lot of videos where I show people how to teach the dog to stay behind an invisible line. But the more you practice these things, she needs impulse control. And so I think there's another factor. We got a problem? Okay. Impulse control is a big factor for her. And so I want to go next to the humans who are eating food, but I've been trained to stay behind this line. I want to go through the door, but I've been trained not to do that. Practice that leave it exercise that we went over with you. So if she starts going towards the dog or the cat, you say, leave it. Oh, so leaving that alone gets me a reward. Again, all positive reinforcement. So also, if you're going up and down the stairs, don't let her race ahead of you. Don't let her go out the door ahead of you. For dogs, whoever's in front perceived to be the leader. So if you're going when you're on that walk, that's why I don't want any dog to be in front, because then that creates a competition. Now, eventually, I would probably, because Eddie is an older dog, I would probably structure it where he would be allowed on the couch and she would not later on. But again, that's a personal preference for you guys, just because he's an older dog. But he also has a cyst, and sometimes there's smells and things like that that can also be a trigger that he might have some physical ailments that are causing him to be a little cranky. Okay, so those are rules. We also talked about exercise. So remember to throw the treats up and down the stairs. If you have questions on that, because you have a landing. So the first one is I'm going to throw a treat on the first landing, and then when the dog goes down there, I'm going to take a couple steps up here on the top landing, because it's a kind of a boom, and then it goes this way. And so once she gets to the top landing, show her they have a treat and drop it all the way to the bottom. When she gets that one, come up with a funny command word, say, Cuba, or whatever the word is you want to say to go down south. Call it the top of the stairs, give her another one, call it Canada. Count each up, down, or down, up as one, and keep doing it the first time until she's like, you're crazy, I'm not going down there anymore. Now we know what her maximum number is. We want to exercise her 50 to 75% of that maximum number multiple times a day. Remember, when she's being boisterous or nosy or naughty, this probably means that she needs some exercise. So taking her to there, playing a little fetch in the backyard, doing some scent games, all those things can be really beneficial. I've got a lot of videos on my website about exercise, but message me, I'm happy to share them with you as well. I'd also recommend you go to a snuffle mat, and I would feed them, what I would try to do is feed them together, but with some structure. So I'd probably have her on a leash just so you guys have complete control, and that you know that she can't get to the dog. And then have Eddie eat before she eats. But before either dog eats, the human who's feeding them should eat something in 5 or more bites. There's some studies that talk about that not being important. Since I'm not sure, it's not hard to take 5 bites, so I'm saying eat 5 bites. Then when Eddie goes and eats, use that passive training for him. Is he a good eater or a lazy eater?
No, he's good.
So when he takes his first bite of food, call it chimichanga or fajitas or whatever you want to say. So he takes his first bite of food for 4 months. He hears chimichanga, that first bite. She hears chimichanga. You can't see her. She is there. And she hears it. It doesn't mean anything because she doesn't have food in her mouth. But to Eddie, that becomes his command word. So eventually, and then when he gets done eating, then he has to leave the area. Then she gets to eat. And I would recommend feeding her out of a snuffle mat. And you can get those on Amazon or Chewy. Remember, Snuffleupagus. So get her a snuffle mat, and so every time she eats, she drains some energy, she stimulates herself, and and it's relaxing for her to be sniffing to find things. And it takes a little bit longer. So it's another great way for her to have something that's reassuring. So and by having her watch him eat first. Now, if she's staring at him, don't let her get too close. Keep on increasing the distance if you need to. And sometimes won't eat in front of the other. He might not want to eat in front of her. So if you keep enough distance, that should be okay. But eventually, she should be able to watch him eat and be comfortable doing that. So we also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. And Taylor did a great job of petting with a purpose. Petting with a purpose is, remember, if you want to pet the dog or if the dog comes up and nudges you, instead of petting the dog, you're going to give the dog a counter order when the dog, and to tell it to sit or to lie down. Don't ask it to shake. And tell it to sit. If it doesn't sit within 3 seconds, lean back, watch a little TV, read about some supper cash, whatever it is. Just show your dog, I've got other things to do. Playing hard to get works great for dogs. It works great for dating. So show the dog, I've got 23 other things to do. You're missing the boat. That makes the dog more motivated next time to want to listen to you. So after a while, the dog will realize, I can't tell them what to do anymore because leaders tell, followers ask. So what you realize is when I tell them what to do, nothing happens other than they give me a counter order. And when I do the counter order, they reward me. If I don't do it, then I get nothing. So my options are get something I want or get nothing. We don't need the punishment. That's the beauty of modern dog training. So after a while, she'll figure this out and she'll be like, I can't tell them what to do anymore. I have to ask. Better than ask, I have to actually pay for the privilege of my attention. And I'm going to go sit in front of them to prepay for the attention. And if she does, make sure you pet her under her chin and say the word sit and only the word sit, and pet her as much or as little as you want, at least one pet. If she's already sitting, ask her to come sit over here or ask her to lay down. If she's asking you. But after a while, she comes, sits or lays in front of you. That's her way of saying, can I please have some attention in a nice, polite way? Make sure you acknowledge that and reward that. Otherwise, she'll go back to the pawing, spazzing out on you, and the rest of that stuff. Remember to use the watchword of paycheck if you suspect someone's petting without a purpose, and that's not a gotcha. It's meaning, excuse me, sir, I think you may have forgotten to pet with a purpose. Maybe you should stop petting the dog, ask it to sit, pet it under its chin, and then say sit, and then turn it to me and say, actually, I asked the dog to sit before you open the door. When you opened the door, she stood up, and I continued petting, but thank you, because I do forget to pet without a purpose. Remember, it's positive or not gotcha. We also talked about passive training. Passive training is rewarding her when she voluntarily does behaviors that we want. You saw her at the beginning of the video come to me a couple times. I didn't ask her to, but that's still to come, so I'm rewarding her for it. Most of the time, the only time we give our dog a command word is the end of fun. She's having a great time yelling at the squirrel. You worried about your neighbors, so you ask her to come inside and you close the door. And she's like, well, shoot, I was having a great time. I listened to you, and now the fun is over. I'm not listening to you next time. Well, this takes all of that out of the equation. Every time I come to a human, they're just petting me like crazy and saying, come. Man, they're just needy or something. But that's what we want her to think. Coming to a human is a good, rewardable event. Going to the Estes is a good, rewardable event. Drinking water, eating my food, laying down, bringing a toy. Name all your individual toys. Come up with funny command words for them. Remember, dogs are the only animal on the planet that can read a human facial expression. So I also use vocabulary. So write down a list of all the vocabulary words and all the toys. And that way, if you're like, come here, somebody says vocabulary, I'm like, oh, thank you, come. Because come here is not come. We often talk to our dogs as if they speak English. They do not. So they hear command words. Also, they're cats. Cats do that. But I would try to curtail a little bit the cats on the table and the counters and all that fun stuff, because that can promote a little bit counter surfing. I found that a lot of dogs that live with cats start getting up on tables and stuff like that. Taylor's looks like wheels are going in her head right now. All right, so I'm trying to think. We went over the escalating consequences of disagree. I don't go over those on film. If you remember what they are, if you don't remember, please message me and let me know. I'm happy to go over them with you. Let me try to think. For the kitchen and the dining room, any area you want her to leave, make sure you go in there, show you have a treat, throw the treat just 3 feet outside of it. When she goes outside and gets it, licks it up, say the word out. And throw it out of the kitchen this way, that way, dining room table here, 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 area around here. And you can also come up with I've had people do this where they put the X pen in the middle of the room and then she comes up to it, and then basically if somebody further away, and they would call her, and when she run away from the dog, we would give her the toy, the treat, and you could say flee or space. What you're doing is training her to move away from Eddie. So that way, if she's like, Eddie's there and she's kind of getting close to him, you say, flee, and she runs away from him and gets a reward. So that's a nice, easy way to train that. We don't want to punish her for it. We just want to distract her. Now, also, I talked about it earlier, but really emphasize the chewing. She went through 3 bully bites that should have taken her like 5 to 7 minutes on each one. She went through them in like 2 or 3 minutes. Remember to get a water buffalo horn. Make sure she has antlers, nyla bones, real bones. I saw one real bone out of the couch. But she needs a lot of options to chew on it. She should have access to all these all the time. So if she's frustrated with Eddie, instead of going and growling at Eddie, she can go and chew on this thing and release some of that frustration. And also, one last little thing, I should have said this a long time ago. When you're going to do the stuff with her and Eddie, make sure you exercise her first. Give her that recovery period, make sure she's not breathing heavy, and then do the sniffs or the click for looks or any of the rest of those things, the walks together. So if you take out that top level of energy, you're going to set her up for success. I'm a big one on doing, I don't say I cheat, but I give the dog every advantage I possibly can, especially when we have aggression, because it's not going to work out very well with Eddie. She's a big girl. Anything else you want me to go over?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Sophie, come. She's on the couch. It's hard to get off the couch. Yes, I know. Such a big girl. How about we come over to S's? And remember to throw those treats 10 treats at a time. Estes. So throw the treat and go to Groupon. We talked about that. Throw 10 treats in a row, and then when she's not looking, leave a treat. And every once in a while, pull her over just like I did. Sit. Hey. Sophie. Sit. Sit. Or Estes, excuse me. And then, and if you do that conjunct with the carpet, you saw how difficult it was for her to sit. I think that will help. I don't know. All right, you're photo bombing. Sophie, one last time. Sophie, I do have a treat this time. Sit. Sit. This is Sophie. This is Sophie's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.